Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're opening up a really tough case, one that revealed some deep problems in how missing young people were handled.
Yeah, we're looking at the disappearance and murder of 16-year-old Skylar Neese back in 2012.
And it's not just the crime itself, which is devastating, but also the legal changes that came out of it. It's a landmark case.
Absolutely. The investigation itself is pretty chilling. You've got premeditation, deceit, and the perpetrators, her supposed best friends.
Unbelievable.
But, like you said, maybe the bigger thing for us today is how the whole investigation got sidetracked, derailed, really, by rules meant for, total different kinds of cases,
Yeah.
old school kidnapping scenarios.
Exactly. So that's our mission for this deep dive. Piece together the timeline, look at how calculated this crime was, analyze those terrible systemic failures, and then break down the law that came after Skylar's law.
And just to hook you in right away, Skylar Neese. She was an honor student working part-time at Wendy's, had plans to become a lawyer.
Real ambition.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then she vanishes. Picked up in the middle of the night by the very people she trusted most. That level of deception, it allowed them to keep up a cover story for months.
Okay, let's ground ourselves in the timeline. When did she actually disappear?
July 6, 2012. Star City, West Virginia. Skylar gets home from her shift at Wendy's, goes to her family's apartment.
Right, and there's surveillance footage, isn't there? That was key early on.
Super key. It shows Skylar climbing out of her bedroom window. It's about 12:30 a.m. She gets into this light-colored sedan waiting for her.
And that car was later confirmed.
Confirmed as belonging to Sheila Eddy, one of the quote-unquote best friends.
Her parents, Mary and Dave Neese, they noticed things right away, didn't they? Things she left behind.
Yeah, and this is important. She didn't take her contact lenses or this solution. Didn't take her cell phone charger.
Little things, but they add up.
Exactly. And her window, she left it open. Her dad pointed that out. It really looked like she planned to sneak back in, like she thought she'd only be gone a little while.
So the family immediately feels something's wrong. But the official response, that was different.
Yeah, that's where the problems start. Despite the parents' worries, the missing stuff, the weird timing, law enforcement's initial classification was runaway.
Runaway. And that label, it changes everything, doesn't it?
Completely. It immediately limits the kind of resources put into the search. It sets a whole different tone.
And critically, it meant no Amber Alert. That tool, probably the most powerful one they had, they couldn't use it. Why not?
The rules back then in West Virginia were just incredibly strict. You needed to meet 4 specific criteria for an Amber Alert.
Okay.
Skylar's case failed on 2 of them. First, you needed definite proof of an abduction. Police felt they didn't have that. She climbed out the window, got into a car with people she knew.
Right, it didn't look like a classic kidnapping.
Exactly. And second, for a teenager her age, believe it or not, many places had this, like unofficial 48-hour waiting period before they'd even consider a teen missing and possibly endangered.
48 hours. Wow.
Yeah. So the system was basically set up for stranger danger. A van pulling up, grabbing a kid. It just wasn't equipped to handle a situation where a teen is lured out by people they trust, even if the family is screaming that something is terribly wrong.
How bad was that delay, realistically?
It was devastating. When a case gets tagged as runaway, all the big guns, the FBI, serious warrants, statewide alerts, they're often held back or not used at all.
Right.
And for a crime like this planned out beforehand, those first 48 hours are absolute crucial. Tracking the car, getting phone records, finding witnesses before everything goes cold.
So the rules themselves, the technicalities, basically gave the killers a head start.
A massive head start. 48 hours initially,
Right.
but it ended up being 6 months because the investigation just didn't have that immediate urgency or the right classification.
And while this is all happening, while the system is failing Skylar, one of the killers, Sheila Eddy, is doing something just audacious.
It's hard to wrap your head around. The sources confirmed she was right there with the Neese family, helping them put up missing person flyers.
Helping them search.
Yeah. All while lying to the police about when they picked Skylar up, lying about everything, knowing exactly what happened.
The psychological manipulation there, it's staggering. To look those parents in the eye.
The level of detachment, the calculated performance, it's deeply disturbing.
So the investigation is stalled, the family is desperate, and the truth is just hiding in plain sight. The 2 people in that car.
Her best friends from University High School,
Yeah.
Sheila Eddy and Rachel Shoaf.
And this wasn't like a fight that got out of hand.
Yeah.
The sources are clear on this. This was planned. Coldly, carefully planned.
Yeah, you look at the court transcripts and the details are all there. They knew exactly what they were going to do.
Walk us through that. The crime itself, they drove her somewhere specific, right? Not just randomly.
That's right. They drove her about 20 miles north, just over the state line into Pennsylvania, to this remote, kind of wooded area near Brave, Pennsylvania.
Why there?
It was a spot they knew. They'd apparently hung out there before, smoked weed there. Familiar territory.
Okay. And crossing state lines. That complicates things legally too, doesn't it?
Immediately. It introduces jurisdictional issues right off the bat. Who investigates? Which state prosecutes? It adds layers.
And the planning. You mentioned evidence of that. What did they have in the car?
This is what really seals the premeditation charge later on. In Sheila Eddy's trunk, investigators found what you can only call a murder kit.
A murder kit? Like what?
Cleaning rags, bottles of bleach, wet wipes, clearly for cleaning up, a shovel, and even clean clothes for themselves to change into afterwards.
Wow. No doubt about the intent there.
None at all. The plan was obviously to commit the murder and then erase every possible trace of themselves being there.
So how did the attack actually happen?
They got her out there, probably acted normally for a bit, made her feel safe. Then they used a trick. Said they forgot a lighter back in the car. When Skylar turned her back, apparently to go get the lighter, they counted 1, 2, 3, and attacked her together with knives.
Yeah.
2 knives they'd hidden.
Just horrific. Did Skylar fight back? The sources mentioned an injury?
She did fight back. It was a detail that became really crucial later. During the struggle, she actually managed to grab Rachel Shoaf's knife, or maybe wrestle with her, and stabbed Shoaf just above the ankle.
Okay, so Shoaf was injured.
Yeah. Shoaf later said that after she got stabbed, she kind of stopped attacking, but Sheila Eddy kept going. And that injury, that scar on Shoaf's ankle, it became undeniable physical proof when she finally confessed months later. It backed up her whole story.
Even with all that playing the bleach, the wipes, the cleanup wasn't easy for them, was it?
No, not at all. They had the shovel, and they tried to bury Skylar's body, but the ground there, in that specific spot, was apparently really hard, rocky. They just couldn't dig a proper grave.
So what did they do?
They ended up just covering her body as best they could, with branches, dirt, leaves, whatever they could find in the woods. They cleaned themselves up, cleaned the car as planned, and drove back. Drove back like nothing happened.
And maintained this lie, this complete fabrication, for how long?
Almost 6 months. 6 months of looking everyone in the eye, pretending to be grieving friends, while knowing Skylar's body was lying in those woods in Pennsylvania, less than 30 miles from her home.
Incredible. What finally broke the case open?
It was Rachel Shoaf. The pressure, the guilt, it finally got to her. Sources say she had a complete nervous breakdown, ended up being admitted to a psychiatric hospital for a short time.
Okay.
And basically, as soon as she was released, she went straight to her lawyer and confessed everything. The whole plan, the murder, where the body was.
And she led them right to it.
She did. In March 2013, she led investigators to that spot in Pennsylvania, and they found Skylar's remains, exactly where Shoaf said they would be.
When Shoaf first confessed, the motive she gave police seemed weirdly insufficient, didn't it? For something so brutal.
Yeah, the initial statement reported was just they didn't like her anymore. They didn't want to be friends with her.
Just it. You plan a murder because you don't want to be friends. It doesn't track.
It really doesn't. And that narrative, while maybe partially true on a surface level, wasn't the full story. The real motive came out more clearly during the court process and especially later during Shoaf's parole hearing in May 2023.
Okay, so what was the deeper reason?
It centered on a relationship between Eddy and Shoaf. They were involved romantically, secretly, and that relationship was causing tension with Skylar.
Ah, okay. So it wasn't just a simple falling out. There was a secret involved. Jealousy, maybe? Fear of exposure?
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Skylar apparently knew about the relationship. Sources mentioned she'd even written about it in her diary back in the fall of 2011. She'd witnessed them being intimate during a sleepover when they'd been drinking. So whether Skylar disapproved or threatened to reveal the secret, or maybe the relationship itself was just causing friction between the three of them. That pressure, that secret dynamic, that's the confirmed catalyst. They decided Skylar was a problem they needed to eliminate.
Okay, that makes more sense, tragically. Let's talk about the consequences. The legal outcomes were different for Eddy and Shoaf.
Very different, yeah. And it really highlights how the justice system weighed their actions after the crime.
So, Rachel Shoaf.
Shoaf confessed. She led them to the body. She expressed remorse, at least publicly, so she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder.
Which carries a lesser sentence.
Right. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison, but she became eligible for parole after serving just 10 years.
And did she get parole?
No, she was actually denied parole at her first hearing in May 2023. But the key is, her cooperation definitely resulted in a lesser charge and a sentence with a possibility of release much sooner than Eddy's.
Okay, and Sheila Eddy, the one who never confessed, who helped with the flyers.
Eddy maintained the lie until Shoaf's confession basically forced her hand. She never showed public remorse. She ended up pleading guilty to first-degree murder.
Which is typically life without parole.
Usually, yes.
Okay.
But the judge sentenced her to life imprisonment with mercy.
With mercy. What does that mean, practically speaking?
In West Virginia law, with mercy means that even though it's a life sentence, the person is eligible for parole consideration after serving a certain minimum amount of time.
Okay, so it's not necessarily life without parole.
Exactly. For Eddy, that minimum is 15 years. So she won't even have her first parole hearing until 2028. But the possibility exists eventually. The court clearly drew a line based on cooperation and maybe perceived remorse.
All right, let's shift gears now. Away from the crime itself and towards the legacy. Skylar's parents were rightly furious about that initial response, the failure to issue an Amber Alert.
Absolutely furious. And they were right. It was a glaring systemic failure. The police had their hands tied by rules that just didn't fit the situation. Needing proof of kidnapping, that 48-hour wait, it cost critical time.
So how did the state respond to that? Did anything change?
It did. And remarkably quickly, this is where we get Skylar's Law.
Skylar's Law, okay.
Fueled by the Neese family's advocacy and the obvious hole in the system this case exposed, the West Virginia legislature acted fast. The law passed both the House and Senate unanimously in the spring of 2013.
Unanimously, wow.
Yeah, just weeks after Skylar's body was found. Governor Earl Ray Tomblin signed it into law that May.
That speed really shows they recognized the urgency, the mistake that had been made systemically. What did Skylar's Law actually do? How did it fix the Amber Alert problem?
It fundamentally changed the criteria. It basically said, look, we need to get the word out immediately if any child is reported missing and is believed to be in danger. Full stop.
Regardless of whether you can prove it was a kidnapping.
Exactly. It removed that requirement. And crucially, it got rid of that arbitrary 48-hour waiting period for teenagers.
So it shifted the focus.
Completely. Instead of getting bogged down in definitions, is it a kidnapping? Is it a runaway? The law empowered police to act based on perceived danger. If there's a credible belief a child is at risk, issue the alert, notify other agencies, get the information out there now.
That makes so much more sense. It focuses on the child's safety above all else.
Precisely. It allows law enforcement to use their judgment based on the immediate situation, the perceived threat, rather than being constrained by rigid, outdated rules. It acknowledges that danger doesn't always look like a stranger abduction. Often, tragically, comes from people the child knows.
So that law, born from this terrible tragedy, created a vital new safety net. It expanded police discretion in a way that directly prioritizes the child.
It really did. It's a powerful example of how advocacy, even in the face of unimaginable grief, can force real, necessary change. That system would likely still be flawed today without Skylar's Law pushing past that bureaucratic inertia.
So, recapping here. We've walked through this story of just devastating betrayal, the chilling premeditation involved, and, importantly, the systemic change, Skylar's Law, that came about because the old system failed.
Yeah, and that contrast is still striking, isn't it? The meticulous planning by the killers, the chosen location, the murder kit, crossing state lines, versus the system's initial inability to even react effectively because of procedural roadblocks. Justice was eventually served, yes. But the system learned a hard lesson about acting fast when a child's safety is potentially on the line.
And there's one more detail from the sources that really sticks with you. Apparently, other students at their high school had overheard Eddy and Shoaf talking about hurting Skylar, maybe even plotting, but they dismissed it.
Yeah, they thought they were joking, making dark jokes, being dramatic teenagers. They didn't take it seriously.
Which leaves us with a really difficult final thought for you, the listener. Think about that. When does something stop being a disturbing joke or just empty talk and become something you need to report? Where is that line? And what responsibility do we all have when we hear something, even if it sounds outlandish, that raises even a tiny red flag about someone's safety, something to really consider?
Subscribe for more.